Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we've got Bulls changing point guard, and the White Sox dominating the Red Sox, and hopefully Cubs going into first place after the weekend, or after this week. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is over now, but your Ice Hogs finished in the top 4 in the AHL. Season tickets are on sale now, so head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, and season tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex.
How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. It is, I kind of like this weather. It's not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah, for sure.
I can wear shorts and not sweat.
Yeah, I hear that. I think the 70, 75, maybe closer to 80, in that range, anywhere in the 70s is just really, really good temperature.
Yeah, I can take that all day.
Me too.
So I wasn't going to talk about the Blackhawks, but there was The Athletic posted an article, and I don't know if you're a subscriber to The Athletic. I am not, but
I need to be.
Yeah, I keep meaning to, but then I never do. But they, you know how they show you like the first paragraph, and then they're like, oh, if you want to continue reading this, pay us. Well, the first article or first paragraph about an article about the Blackhawks and some rumors that are going on with them, they basically insinuate that the Blackhawks might be trading to get Scott Darling.
Well, I guess my first question is, where would we begin in terms of talking a trade?
Well, I mean, I think maybe a couple month or two ago, we were discussing that would not be an awful idea. He's a known commodity here. He's loved here. His home is here. And he played well while he was here. Did he play enough to beat out Corey Crawford? Absolutely not. But he played really well, and infinitely better than the goalie play that we've got behind Corey Crawford now.
Oh yeah,
so it makes sense for the Bulls or the Blackhawks.
The Bulls.
The Bulls. It makes sense for the Bulls to put him at point guard, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to cost anything substantial by any means. I'm just curious as to what we would have to give up, even though it's probably not going to be much at all.
Well, the rumors remember the Tavo trade where we had the Bickle trade where we had to basically give them Tavo to take Bickle?
Yeah.
Well, the rumor is that it's going to be one of those types of deals where they'll have to give up something in order for us to take Scott Darling and the salary that he got.
Interesting.
And there's other talks that the Blackhawks might trade the rights to Marian Hossa because they're on the books for him, and trade the rights for him knowing that it's just a salary dump and have to give up something else. So there's a lot of interesting things that the Blackhawks are doing that are to A, get more salary cap flexibility, and B, build some depth on this team.
So basically what would happen is the Hawks would shed Marian Hossa's salary hit, I should say, in exchange for getting a backup goaltender that's been very valuable in this city. So how does that benefit the Hurricanes other than shedding Scott Darling's money? That's just kind of what I'd like to know.
I don't know if they're going to end up being the same deal, or if it's if they're going to be two separate deals to two separate teams.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting times because things, the draft is coming up pretty quick for the NHL, and you're going to start seeing some interesting moves. And I think Marian Hossa, the league will lose their crap about it and probably start making rules about what the Blackhawks are going to do. But right now, it's still under the letter of the law. They can trade the rights to Marian Hossa and get that cap flexibility. Maybe they have to give up some picks for that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
So you're saying they trade the rights while giving another team something. So it's like, okay, if you want this, then you're going to have to take the rights to Marian Hossa. Okay, I see.
Yes. So, I mean, all these are rumors, and I'm not seeing any sources to them. And you're going to hear a lot of these types of things swirling for the next, I don't know, while, because we just barely finished the season. And congratulations to Alexander Ovechkin on finally shedding the curse of the Washington Capitals and getting a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I was watching that game with a friend, and I've never seen any player in the history of hockey so giddy like a child to get the Stanley Cup. I mean, that was something really just kind of cool to see. And ever since he got the Stanley Cup, he literally has not let go with it. He's slept with it. He's dove into fountains with it. He has had Russian beer out of it. Like, he's done everything with the Stanley Cup, and I don't think he's going to relinquish it anytime soon.
Would you?
No, especially not in his situation. I cherish every single millisecond with that thing.
Phil Pritchard is probably having like anxiety attacks about what Alex Ovechkin is going to do with the cup.
Oh, I know. He's laying in bed, rolling around with his white gloves still on, just having nightmares about him like chucking the Stanley Cup off of like one of those big buildings in Moscow or something ridiculous.
Oh, poor Phil Pritchard.
He's been doing that for how long?
Since the Rangers were winning Stanley Cups many moons ago.
So, like, he's been doing it for over 2 decades now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how long he's been doing it, but they started having a keeper of the cup in, was it like the early 80s?
I'm going to look it up now because, I mean, that's got to be like a great but really stressful job because you're in charge of what, in my opinion, is the most glorious trophy in all of major sports. And you know that unlike other major sports, you're not like giving out a new trophy every year. It's the same trophy. You give it out to the team that wins, and then you take it back, and then it goes somebody else. So it's like, you got to make sure that thing is in shape. And he's been doing it since December 88. So 30 years he's been doing it. 30 years.
I wonder what the guy makes as a salary.
I don't know. Is this the only thing he does? Like, is his sole career like keeping track of Lord Stanley? And does he make like a crap ton of money with that? That's what I'd love to know.
I'm skimming an interview with him, and apparently after 9/11, they have different rules for how the cup travels because they can't just carry it on the plane anymore.
Oh, that's interesting.
They have to bring it through security.
All right, let's pat down Lord Stanley here.
They've got a special case for it. Yeah, like God, I would love to know how much that guy makes, because if he makes six figures, I'm going to be so jealous.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a great life. Think about it. You get to travel all over the country. Heck, you get to travel all over the world. You get to hold the trophy at all times. You get to be on the ice with the championship team. You get to do a lot of amazing things. Even though there's a lot of pressure on you, you get to do a lot of cool things if you're in his shoes.
Yeah, I mean, when the draft was with the Chicago last year, is he just hung out with the cup, taking pictures with fans, and it was it was just like he just hung out, being cool.
And it's funny because, like, if you want to talk about a guy who's just famous in the whole hockey world, it's Phil Pritchard. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, the Stanley Cup guy. We all know him. We all see him. We see him every year. It had to just kill him during the lockout years.
Probably. But yeah, anyway, like Blackhawks, there's not a ton rolling on right now. It's just a lot of flying around rumors of guys they're interested in, potentially things they can do to expand their salary cap situation, and ways that they can bring in talent to make more depth on this team, which is something they desperately need.
Yeah, there's a lot of things they need, and I think a backup goaltender is probably one of the highest on that list. If you indeed do have Corey Crawford back, which signs are pointing to you will, but we'll have to wait and see for sure.
And then I quickly want to talk about the Bulls. I wasn't going to mention them either, but there's a few basketball things in general. I was watching some of the NBA finals and watched LeBron get swept out. And then immediately afterwards in his press conference, he started crying about how he had a broken hand and, oh, poor him. And that helped usher them into the loss. You know what? Is if you want to be the GOAT, guess what? A, you don't punch a whiteboard, and B, you still play through that. Michael Jordan played the flu game and was one of his best games ever. Michael rose up. LeBron, he just makes excuses and cries.
Well, the funny thing is, when it all comes down to it, he didn't really have much of a team around him. It's like, he still played very well. I mean, very well in some of those games, but, I don't think making a bunch of excuses is going to really, help anything.
And, don't get me wrong, is LeBron James is, absolutely fantastic basketball player, and you can't take that away from him. But he basically told the Cavaliers who he wanted around him. And then when that didn't work, do you remember at the trade deadline, they basically traded away their entire team and got a whole new team around him.
It was a whole new team. I mean, how many guys were traded that day? At least 4, right? Including
they
Kyrie.
traded 6 guys. It was
Kyrie was before the season. Never mind.
It was so many players. They basically got rid of the whole team, and got him a new team because he didn't like the team around him. And he's got to realize he's not a general manager. Shut up and play. Let somebody that's a general manager put the team around you, and if you don't like the team they put around you, then you leave them free agency. But you don't try to dictate the terms of who's going to play around you and what you're going to do with the organization, and then cry about it that you don't like the team around you. You can't have it both ways.
So if you remember at the deadline, they traded Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose, Jay Crowder, Joe Johnston, Iman Shumpert, Dwayne Wade, just to highlight what they did. And that was all within just a few hours. That's a lot. They got Rodney Hood and George Hill, but, this all happened after they traded Kyrie Irving. And I think it was pretty obvious to most people that they were going to get to the finals. No one was going to stop LeBron from getting to the finals. Despite there being a Game 7 against Indiana, the round before the Celtics, even though there was a Game 7 against the Celtics and they were down 3-2, we knew LeBron was going to rise up and beat them. But once they played the Warriors, I mean, I had Warriors in 5. I'm kind of surprised, even with the teams as they were, that there was a sweep. It's really hard to sweep. But you knew that the Warriors are pretty much going to crush them.
Oh, absolutely. And I was shocked that game 1 was so closely contested. But then after that, it just got progressively more and more lopsided towards Golden State. And even in a game where Steph Curry couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, they ran away with it.
Right.
But it leads me to, the argument of Michael versus LeBron, and how many finals did you watch Michael Jordan lose?
0. But
0.
Then again, that was before my time, so
I watched all of them, and he didn't lose any of them. LeBron has lost how many now? He's gotten to a lot of them, but he takes the easy route, and he's lost a lot of them. And I don't know if you saw the Charles Barkley quote from the other day when he was talking about any fellow media members, if they ever say LeBron is better than Michael, what he was going to do. He said something like, I'm going to whoop your ass if you say that LeBron is better than Michael. And he's like, I'm not even going to say nothing. I'm just going to whoop your ass.
Wow.
It was a good one. I like Charles Barkley. But now that LeBron has the ability to opt out of his contract, we are getting the annual "should the Bulls go after LeBron" talk.
It's not going to happen.
Yes, but the talk is going to happen.
Oh, I mean, it's always
going
to
to get worse and worse.
It's always going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just it's the talks are always going to happen. It's just not actually going to happen.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's one of those interesting things. Is if you sign a LeBron James, he's going to sign either whatever it is. It's going to have an opt out, or it's only going to be a short contract, or it's have an opt out and a short amount of time, and it's going to be some sort of fleeting thing, and you might get some temporary success if you are able to get him. But how is it going to hurt you in the long run? Look what bad shape that Cleveland was in after LeBron left the first time. And it wasn't because they didn't have a good team. It was they built everything around LeBron. And when LeBron goes, they're left with a gaping hole in the middle of their roster.
I need to know your opinion right now. Just for the sake of LeBron in Cleveland, what do you think is going to happen? Not where he's going to go, but do you think he's good as gone from Cleveland?
100% gone.
Yeah, I agree. I think some people are saying that, well, he can't, go to the West because it's not easy to win the West like it is the East. But I mean, when you think about it, if LeBron thinks he's the best player in the league, and I mean, obviously he is, I mean, you would think that he'd be open to going anywhere because he thinks he'd be able to overtake anyone, right? I don't think that he would shy away from the West just because he thinks it's not as easy. I mean, it is easier to win the East, but I feel like he'd have the confidence in himself if he went somewhere to be able to still win the West if Golden State was there. You know what I mean?
You know who's going to try to get him from the West, right?
Oh, the Lakers.
Well, the Lakers, but also San Antonio.
Well, that too. I mean, that too. He's not going to the Rockets. They don't have the space. I mean, San Antonio and the Lakers seem like the most likely candidates in the West.
The East, there's a lot more teams that are possibilities, but you start to think about it is who's a realistic possibility. Maybe the 76ers.
I mean, that's the one that a lot of people are talking about because, like, I mean, that whole situation with the 76ers is a mess, but he's been rumored to go to the 76ers. I mean, I mean, not really rumored. It's just kind of been talked about as a possible landing spot. I mean, he's not going to come to the Bulls, even though they have all the cap space in the world. But I will say this. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it would say a lot about LeBron James if he went to a quote-unquote rebuilding team. Not a team that was primed to win a championship before he arrived, or he was the missing piece. If he went to a rebuilding team, imagine how many narratives would change. And again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying, imagine if that did happen. Like he went to a Bulls, or he went to, what if he went to like a smaller market like Milwaukee or something? Like that would change a lot.
I was just going to say Milwaukee would be crazy. As far as the Bulls, it would be crazy if LeBron went to a rebuilding team, but I feel like the Bulls couldn't be classified as a rebuilding team if they got LeBron, because they've got a whole lot of talent then around him.
Oh, of course. That would immediately make them contenders.
Yes, it would suddenly make them probably the contender it'd be like them and Boston in the East. But if he went to like an Orlando or somebody like that, that would be impressive. But Milwaukee would be really interesting because it's a smaller market, but they've got some talent there.
You have one of the most talented players already on that team.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's going to be interesting where he goes. And don't forget remember what he did when he left last time. I mean, not the whole decision thing, but he orchestrated other players going to a city with him. So what's to stop him from teaming up with Chris Paul and going somewhere?
Miami Heat 2.0, same state, Orlando.
That would suddenly make Orlando really good.
Yes, it would. I mean, let's face it. No matter what state your team is in, if LeBron goes to you, you're automatically going to be in the spotlight and you're automatically going to improve. I mean, that's how good LeBron James is.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I mean, he's one guy and he made that team a lot better, but it doesn't stop him from being a crybaby.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about his attitude. It's one of those things where...
Or his taste in clothes.
I still think my favorite LeBron James moment is when he had to wear the Cubs jersey after they won the World Series. I thought that was so funny.
Did you see the suit he was wearing with short pants?
I did, yes.
He dresses worse than Tom Brady.
Yeah, he really does. He really does.
But another thing with the Bulls is you're starting to hear rumors creep up about Kris Dunn and the Bulls suddenly falling out, or him falling out of favor of the Bulls, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I don't really know the details, but I guess they didn't really like the shape he was in or his work ethic. Wasn't it something like that? This off season already, they don't like the effort he's putting in, which is weird because he's been known as like a guy that works really hard during the off season. So it's interesting to hear that being said. I mean, it's one thing if they're like, hey, he was too inconsistent for where we need him to be as our point guard of the future. That's one thing, because that's true. He's a good defender, and there's nights that he looked absolutely amazing, and then there's nights that he looked like, hot garbage. But I just, like, that's one thing if you say that, but it's another thing if you are like, well, his effort in the off season is not so good. I mean, the season just ended like a handful of days ago. What exactly are you expecting so far? You haven't even had the NBA draft. Right. I don't know if there's maybe more personal things going on there that we don't know about. I'm a little confused by this whole thing, and I'm just kind of wondering if it's going to blow over or not. It seems so odd to me.
I mean, because now you're starting to get in the situation where, well, the rumors are that Kris Dunn is falling out of favor, so you might move on from him. And then the rumors are the Bulls don't feel that Zach LaVine is worth a max contract. So what if you move on from him? Then basically you just gave away Jimmy Butler for nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
So that would just make it from it would go from a lot of people being like, well, it was a terrible trade, to suddenly being like, you know what, the Bulls really won that trade, to suddenly, man, that was a terrible trade. The roller coaster of emotions with that trade.
Yep. First you were disappointed, then you saw the potential, and then if this goes bad, then it kind of takes another dip.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And who's gonna run the point for you? I mean, are you going
Cameron Payne?
I mean, you know, your options are you could go with one of the top point guards in the draft, like Trae Young or Sexton from Alabama. Are you going to go with Isaiah Thomas? Are you going to try to make a big free agent splash? Because there's a rumor that the Bulls might try to make a big splash in free agency. And if that's true, are they going to go for Chris Paul?
Well, they have the money to fork over. I don't know how many big time players would want to come here right now. I mean, other than the fact that it's a big market and you'd be in the spotlight even if you weren't very good because you're the Bulls.
I mean, would you? It's not just that they're not good. It's if they make a big trade to get, like, part of the reason that they had to give up a pick to get this trade done for Jimmy Butler is to get Kris Dunn. So if you gave up a pick to get Kris Dunn and then you're not happy with Kris Dunn and you move on and all the other things that the front office has done, why would you come there? Not because, oh, they're not a good team, but because of how terrible the front office is and how dysfunctional the organization is.
Only one thing, dollars and cents. That's about it.
Somebody else is going to find money to pay you. That's just the bottom line. Is the Rockets are going to try to find a way to pay Chris Paul a lot of money. It's sure you might. Well, yeah, I mean, you might get a little more from the Bull. I mean, you might not even. You'll probably get more from Houston. And Houston was the second best team in basketball. And maybe if Chris Paul's healthy, they're the best team in basketball, and they would have beat LeBron in 4. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would you come to the Bulls when you know they're not going to build a championship team around you?
When's the last time they've landed a big-time free agent?
Ben Wallace.
And that was past his prime, Ben Wallace.
That ended up being a bad signing.
Yeah, it was.
What about what's his face? Paul Gasol.
Well, I mean, Paul Gasol was a good player, but I wouldn't put that in a same category as like a I don't know. Trying to think. I mean, obviously LeBron, there's only one LeBron, but like a big star player, they've been interested in Carmelo Anthony. They were interested in a few other guys of that caliber. Paul Gasol was a good signing, but I don't think it's quite that caliber.
Yeah, so I mean, the Bulls are not known for nabbing the big free agent.
No, I mean they strike out all the time on that, and when they've been contending, they've settled on other things. I mean, they've settled on Carlos Boozer, though Paul Gasol was a good signing. It's not like you signed a big time superstar still in his prime. Even though this is a big market, you would think that it would be very desirable to come to a team that's in the third biggest city in America and is one of the biggest cash cows in all of sports. But the way things are run, they don't come here.
I can much more easily think about the the free agent strikeouts, the big free agent strikeouts the Bulls have had, then I can think of big free agent signings.
Oh,
there was the Tracy McGrady debacle.
Yep.
There was when they whiffed on Carmelo, which was probably a very good thing. But I used to work like a couple blocks from the United Center, and when they were trying to get Carmelo, and they put this giant banner of him outside, and
yeah. Didn't they fly him in for lunch too, like for a day?
Yeah, and Derrick Rose wouldn't meet with him. When they tried to get Dwayne Wade, years earlier when he was still good, when they tried to get LeBron James during the decision, whiff. And what's even worse is not only did we not get LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, or Chris Bosh, we did get Carlos Boozer.
Yeah, I mean, we had to really kind of settle, and, it's obviously nowhere near what they wanted, to say the least.
How quickly did that turn from oh my goodness, this could be an amazing situation to, oh my goodness, this is an awful situation, where we're like, oh, we have Derrick Rose, youngest MVP in history, and we could get LeBron James to go alongside him, and you end up with broken Derrick Rose and a Carlos Boozer contract.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why they have one Eastern Conference final appearance since the Jordan era.
Yeah, but you did lead the league in somebody yelling, "Get that, Joe!"
Yay.
So yeah, the NBA draft is in like a week. It's in the 15th.
That sounds about right.
So like then, yeah. So it's not even in a week. So it's going to be interesting. I think whoever they take with that first number 1 pick is really going to set the stage for where they're going to go. If you see them draft a point guard, that's not going to look promising for Dunn. But if they end up getting a shooter, then I think that's where you're going to see them stick it out with Kris Dunn. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice because you're not going to get anything for Dunn, and you're basically taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back by moving on from him.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see how this all turns out. Like, it's almost not surprising. It really isn't. The way this Bulls team has been run, this kind of silly stuff just doesn't surprise me anymore.
Yeah, it's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. But before I get all upset and butthurt about it, I'm going to wait for the draft and see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. Our boys from Ball will give us all the insights.
Yeah, I will have to have those guys on after the draft, and
that'd be great.
And make sure they don't order from a spot they don't know before they have.
Yeah, let's not risk food poisoning. Especially Big Dave. He better not be doing that before the next show.
So let's move on over to baseball. I don't really have any football to talk about unless you do.
I don't.
It is just a lot of the same old. But baseball, we're starting to get interesting here. And I kind of want to talk about the White Sox first. White Sox just came off of a big series win against the Boston Red Sox, who are one of the best record teams in baseball. And it wasn't a fluke win. That they beat Chris Sale, which is awesome. Dylan Covey outpitched Chris Sale.
Yeah, that's something.
And I mean, let's talk about Dylan Covey. Last year, we were all laughing at what a joke he was. And this year, he's got a 1 WAR, 2-1 record with a 2.22 ERA.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. I think he's really worked himself in the offseason for the better. He's probably worked a lot with Don Cooper. And so far, it's paying off.
Yeah, I was listening. I can't remember who I was listening to talk about him. And it seems like last year they picked him up in a Rule 5 draft and they really liked him. But, basically with the rules of Rule 5 is they had to keep him on the roster the entire year, or else they had to offer him back to the team that they got him from. And they wanted to send him down to the minors because that's where he belonged last year. But they were forced to have him stick it out through the entire year, even though it was a really rough year for the most part. But you're starting to see the benefits now because now they like him enough to stay on the roster, and you're seeing the results.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, you're a rebuilding team. You have some injuries in the rotation. You might as well give him a shot again. So far, it's paid off. Frankly, I think the White Sox pitching staff as a whole has been a lot better.
Yeah, it's funny. You're getting better pitching from other guys, and then suddenly James Shields is starting to not look as good.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it funny how that works?
But you took 2 or 3 from Boston, and sure, you only got 1 run off of Chris Sale, but it's all you needed. You won 1-0 against Boston that game.
Yeah. And,
Reno. Oh, go ahead.
Well,
sorry.
I was just going to say a little bit of a continuing from what I was saying about the pitching staff. You got to give a lot of credit to the bullpen as well for holding that down.
Yeah, absolutely. And Reynaldo Lopez had a start against Boston, and he struggled a little bit, but again, he came through when it counted and got the win there.
Yeah, even when he doesn't have his best stuff, he was able to kind of pitch around things.
And I get it that the Red Sox, Red Sox fans will point out that they didn't have Mookie Betts, and he's the engine that makes that team go on offense. And they'll say, well, they were in that series, the Red Sox were 1 for 26 with runners in scoring position. I get it, but you know what? Injuries happen, and you still got to play, and you still got to score runs. And if Mookie Betts is the only guy that's going to get runs across, then you're not nearly as good as you thought, and you ended up losing 2 or 3 at home to the White Sox. And Carlos Rodon made his season debut and got 7 Ks.
Yeah, for coming back from all that time, you got to kind of give him credit for what he did. Obviously, you're not going to have your very best stuff when you first come back from an injury like that. But overall, I think he did a good job, all things considering, for a first time back and against a really good lineup. You got to be happy with what you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, the White Sox are starting to play a whole lot better. You're starting to see the form that they could be taking in the future years. You're starting to see who is a guy that you can stick with, who is a guy you're going to have to move on from. And this team doesn't quit. This team is not quitting. And they've got a lot of reason to quit because there are a lot of holes, but these guys aren't. And Ricky Renneria, I'm going to come back to it, was a really smart choice as manager.
Yeah, and I had a feeling that things were going to get a little better for the White Sox because they have so much young talent that they weren't going to stay like this forever. You also knew that the more young talent comes up, the more they're going to improve, which really has yet to be seen. But, we saw Dylan Covey come back and do some good things. You're going to continue to see some guys come back and do some good things. So, just be patient, take it one game at a time, and hope to continue to see more improvements because that's what rebuilds are all about.
In sort of White Sox news, did you see the video of their former pitcher Matt Latos?
Oh, yes, I did.
So, White Sox fans probably remember Matt Latos. And he's now pitching in independent baseball. And over the weekend, he threw inside to the guy he was pitching against. And the guy didn't react. So then he threw a high, hard one in, right at the guy's head. The guy took one step towards him and clearly was getting ready to turn to go to first. And then Matt Latos started, half-heartedly charging the pit of the batter. And one of the batter's teammates came running from off the camera view at Matt Latos. Matt Latos picked him up and did some sort of pro wrestling move on him and like slammed him to the ground. And then there was like a legit benches clearing brawl, not like a normal MLB one where everybody comes running out and then, they hug each other. Like there was people throwing punches in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really, really, really nasty brawl. I mean, not the nastiest I've seen, but all things considering, it wasn't just benches clear, some exchange of words, and then fizzle out. No, I mean, that was a brawl. And what's really interesting to me is just the fact that Matt Latos is still even pitching. I mean, I had no idea what had happened to the guy, and that solved my mystery.
Yeah, he really went downhill quick. And yeah, that was probably the most brutal fight since the one where Pedro basically took Don Zimmer and flung him down by his face.
Yeah, that brawl on YouTube already has over 200,000 views.
Which is more views than that whole league in baseball has gotten fans in the entire season so far.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's true. I mean, I'm looking at it now, and I'm watching it again, and I can remember there'd be some really nasty brawling among a group of people, and then it would kind of fizzle out, and then they'd get mad again, and then things would kind of pick up again, and it went on for a good few minutes. It wasn't over within a minute or so. It went on for a few minutes. And so, what is he? Is he on the Jackals? Is that the team he's on?
I don't remember what teams were.
Yeah, it's the Jackals. The New Jersey Jackals and Rockland Boulders. I don't really know what those teams are, what level that is. I'm curious to see, but, remember, Matt Latos was recently just in the majors. And now he's in the minors. Let's see. Canadian American Association of Professional Baseball.
I never heard of it.
So it's independent ball. It's not even affiliated with, he's not even with a major league organization.
Why couldn't he play for the Rosemont Dogs?
Yeah, really. I would see him on my way to work all the time, but then he'd probably stare me down and throw a baseball at my car. So I won't do that if he ever came there.
Try to fight you for looking at him.
Like I'm driving, all of a sudden I look in my rearview mirror and he's just sprinting like the Terminator towards me.
But all right, so now that Rodon is pitching again, do the White Sox take this opportunity to send Lucas Giolito down to the minors?
I think they're going to give him a few more starts because his last start, it wasn't amazing, but he did only give up like 2 earned runs in 6 innings or something. So kind of grinded his way through it. I think they're going to see what happens with his next few starts. If things don't go well, then they do. Or they should at least.
I read an interesting stat that his on-base percentage, the against him on-base percentage in the first inning of games is almost 500.
Ooh.
It's 483.
Ooh. Yeah, we've seen a lot of his struggles mainly come in the first inning. Obviously, he's had struggles all around, but we've seen that the first inning can really do him in. Even the game against the Cubs, his worst inning was the first inning.
Yeah, I mean, he just really just comes out struggling in the first inning.
And that gets him into trouble for the rest of his start. His pitch count's high. He's already fatigued. He's already, in a deficit. So I think one of the biggest keys with him is getting through that first inning.
Well, I mean, and that's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, where was I reading this? That stat. Yeah, here we are. Lucas Giolito has allowed the highest on-base percentage, 483 in the first inning among pitchers who have 10 innings pitched in the first this season. He's not been much better in the second inning, where he's the fourth highest, or the third, where he's the fifth highest.
No, it probably doesn't help that he's giving up a lot in the first because he's already kind of rattled. What I'd like to see from him is consistently get through the first inning going unscathed and see if he can consistently continue that throughout the ball game. Sometimes it's hard for people to bounce back when they have a rough first inning. Some guys do it, but sometimes when you're in a rut early on, it's hard to rebound from that.
Yeah, I mean, but at least if you're Lucas Giolito and you can get through those first 3 innings, then it's smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, White Sox, and you're already starting to see some bright spots, and they're beating good teams, and the rebuild is starting to look shorter than you expected 6 months or a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta keep watching, see what happens, see how they develop, and you hope that things could kind of come together at once. That's when things work best.
So that moves us to the Cubbies. I think you and I have quite a bit to talk about here.
For sure.
And let's just get the big one right out of the way. Kyle Hendricks getting pulled after 87 pitches.
Yeah. I thought in that situation that you should have just had Hendricks bunt the guys over. You had 2 on, nobody out. If you really, really wanted to have a bunt situation, you want to do it, that was the situation to do it.
I mean, I've been tossing and turning on this one. Is normally I get very upset when he pulls Kyle Hendricks early, because that's his go-to, is pulls Kyle Hendricks early. And in this situation, I'm like, all right, well, I sort of get it. Is you haven't been scoring runs. You've got 2 guys on. Is you put in a guy that had LaStella. When was the last time LaStella hit into a double play before that? So you put in a guy that's just making good contact with the ball, that doesn't hit into double plays very often. And then you go to Baez. And it was like a comedy of errors, because basically all that happened was the exact opposite of what you wanted to happen happened. LaStella comes up, hits into a double play, and then Baez strikes out, and you get nothing. Then you got to go to your bullpen, which the Joe Madden uses his bullpen. I just read the stat, 10% more than any other team in the National League.
Yeah. I mean, that's where the whole debate comes in.
Is so, but the other part of me is, I see this, because your bullpen is good. LaStella does make contact. You're not scoring runs. I get these things, but I'm also of the mind is let the pitcher bunt them over. And what are the odds he's going to bunt you into double play? A lot lower than somebody, a non-power hitter coming to the plate and batting. Especially
Ivan Nova was getting nothing but ground balls. So it's like everyone was hitting into double plays.
Is bunt those guys over, and you got runners on second and third with 1 out, and it puts you in a much better situation, and you still probably get another inning or 2 out of Hendricks.
Yeah, I mean, that could have changed a lot of things. Now, I'm not, one to be like, oh, Joe Madden, idiot for doing that, blah, blah, blah. Like, like you said, part of me does get it. Part of me wishes he just would have stayed in. But at the end of the day, the Cubs didn't hit. Everything fell apart afterwards. It just wasn't a good game at all. Just one of those games.
Yeah, it got away from them real quick. And you know, it's funny. It's one of those games is that because it was the last game of a series, that's the one you focus on. But if you look, I mean, the Cubs played really well in the rest of that series.
Yeah, they did. I mean, the offense wasn't spectacular, but they did everything else really well. They fielded great. They got great pitching for the most part. The starting pitching especially. The bullpen had a few shaky moments, but they still got through it. So they did a lot of good things there, even though the hitting wasn't all there.
No, the hitting hasn't been great, but you're starting to see some guys heat up that you need to heat up, including Rizzo.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing him hit the ball out of the ballpark more. You're seeing Jason Hayward hitting. Ever since we talked about him that one show, he's been hitting. We all saw what happened on Wednesday. Probably one of the best Cub wins in regular season in a while. So
I gotta ask
some
you,
positives there.
So the game Alex is talking about is the walk-off grand slam hit by Jason Hayward. And how long did you have your OMG face on after that hit?
So I was in shock the whole night. Like the whole night. I kept saying to myself, did that really just happen? Like Jason Hayward hit a walk-off grand slam? And look, I don't mean to rag on Jason Hayward. I do like the guy. But I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't think he was coming through in that situation. At least I thought, okay, if he is going to come through, it's probably going to be on a sharp single that ties the game or, you know, a sharp ground ball that finds a hole. The last thing I thought was that he was going to hit a grand slam. But he did. And it was wonderful.
I figured he was just going to hit a soft grounder to second baseman.
I think a lot of people thought that, unfortunately. But you know what? Lately, not only are you seeing Hayward hit the ball with authority, you're seeing him spread the ball out. He's going to the opposite field. Just in the Pirates series, you saw him hit doubles down the third base line. I think you saw a pulled single, maybe not in the Pirates series, but you've seen him pull singles through the holes. You've seen him go opposite field. You're seeing it being spread out a bit more, and that's a good thing.
And I had this dream last night that the Cubs Cardinals were playing in a game 7 of the NLCS, and it was tied bottom of the 9th, and Rizzo was up to plate, and Baez was on third, and the Cardinals were caught in a position of putting the big shift on Rizzo or keeping Baez on third. And they decided to put the shift on, and Baez stole home to win the game.
Oh, could you imagine? Could you imagine if that actually happened?
Can you imagine Yachty's head explode?
Oh, God. That would be talked about a very, very long time. And that would be Sports Center top 10. You'd be seeing Baez celebrating, and you'd see Yachty right by him just in complete shock.
Yeah, and they would also, if that happened, is because Baez is the more confidence he gets, the better he starts doing. And something like that would just spark him, and you'd see him bat for like 600 in the World Series, and make these spectacular plays, and do a swipe from behind his back to tag out a guy at second.
Well, look what his game-winning home run in Game 1 of the 2016 NLDS did for him. He went on a tear pretty much throughout the rest of the division series and the championship series.
Yeah, I mean, every every week I just start liking Baez more and more.
Yeah, he does a lot of great things. I didn't like him batting leadoff, I'll be honest with you there, but, the guy still leads the team in home runs and RBIs, and you could say what you want about RBIs. I know it's not a great indicator of talent, but I guess credit goes where credit's due. He doesn't have the great OBP, obviously, because that's not really his game. He doesn't take a lot of walks, but he's still slugging high. He's hitting the home runs, and he's productive.
But while we're talking about home runs, there's somebody that's not hitting some of those.
Yeah, mainly Kris Bryant and Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, and in both of those guys have really good slash lines. Like Wilson Contreras is right there, like probably above his career stats, and Kris Bryant is having a good statistical year. But just the power, where's the power?
Yeah, it's not there. He has 8 home runs on the year and hasn't hit one in a while.
I mean, Wilson Contreras already has over a 2 WAR and has the second highest WAR among catchers. And just the power not there. Kris Bryant's, got, really good slash line, playing well, just not hitting the home runs like he normally does. It's just really odd.
Yeah, I don't know if it had something to do with getting hit in the head. I don't know. I mean, you're still seeing him hit singles, and you're still seeing him hit great at bats, but he is not really slugging the ball at all. But I still think that'll come around. So hopefully tonight, that would be nice. They're down already, so be nice if
already
1-0. A guy named Eric Kratis or something like that just hit a bomb.
Against Quintana.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first earned run Quintana's given up all year to the Brewers.
I think this is only the second inning that they've ever scored off of him.
Yeah. That Brewers haven't scored a lot of runs against the Cubs, but they did there. I mean, right now, the past few games, the offense really has not been there. So hopefully that ends.
These next several games, the next 2 series are really going to be ones that we're going to need the Cubs offense to come through. They're playing a series against Milwaukee, obviously, right now, and the winner of this series will be in first place in the division. And then they followed up with a series against the Cardinals.
Yeah, this is not going to be an easy stretch.
No, it's not an easy stretch, and it's not a make or break stretch by any means, but it's going to be. I think if they end up going like 4-2 in this stretch, I think you're going to see that catapult the Cubs. But if they go 2-4, it's not going to cost the Cubs in the long run. But I don't think this is going to be an awful thing if they lose both series. But I think if they win both series, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, if they went 3-3, I still think that's fine. I just don't want them to go sub 500 in this stretch. Obviously, my main goal realistically would be 4-2. Obviously, 6-0 would be amazing, but I have a hard time seeing that. They can go 3-3 or 4-2. I think that's just fine. Again, it's not season deciding by any means. There's still a long way to go, but you still would like to kind of keep things up. I mean, they've been playing some really good baseball. On nights, sometimes they have the pitching get it done. On nights, sometimes it's the offense. More or less lately, it's been the pitching. The offense really hasn't been doing that much lately, but the pitching's been good enough to keep them winning games, as has the defense. So you just kind of hope the offense gets going here and can continue the winning ways.
Yeah, and the Cubs, I think I just read that they have like the second best record in NL.
Yeah.
Or
they have the fewest losses, I believe.
Yeah, so the Cubs are but the spread between the top 5 teams in the NL is really narrow. If they can win both of these series against the Brewers and the Cardinals, it's going to be huge because it's going to definitely propel them into first place in the division, and it's going to probably give them a little bit of cushion as well.
Yeah, exactly. I always hate riding too much on this kind of series because it's not the end of the world, but you also got to admit that this is kind of an important series. You want to get the best perspective you can on it.
Yeah, I'm looking, and the Cubs would be in first place in most divisions. Like, where did the Mariners come from?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to last. But you got to give them credit.
They're great. I mean, the Red Sox, Yankees, they're good. But the Cubs would be ahead of the Indians in the AL Central, ahead of the Nationals in the East, and I think the Nationals, this is when they start pulling ahead and they take this division, not run away with it, but they dominate it. And they'd be ahead of the Diamondbacks, and I don't know. That's not a very good division, I don't think, unless the Dodgers figure out what they're doing different than last year.
Well, if they get healthy again, I think then they can run away with it in the second half.
Yeah, the Dodgers just got to hang in there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's pretty much what they've done the past few weeks. They've been winning a lot more ball games, and even though they got off to a bad start with the injuries, as long as they hang around, the competition in that division as well, probably the Diamondbacks are the best. The Rockies are good but not great. The Giants are pretty mediocre, and the Padres are the Padres, so...
The Padres have a nice park.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about them.
They do.
It's a fun park to go to. Injuries news. CJ Edwards is starting to play catch after the shoulder injury, which is a positive sign. I don't know the timetable for him coming back. The more concerning one is Yu Darvish. We initially got the good news that it was no structural damage, just some inflammation, and they put him on the 10-day disabled. And then the word came out that he might not pitch again until after the All-Star break.
Yeah. That's not news you want to hear. The good news is that Mike Montgomery has really held his own in the rotation. I mean, he's giving you quality starts. He's going 6 innings and giving up 1 run or less. I mean, you saw his last start against the Pirates. He didn't really have his best stuff, but he was grinding his way through the ball game and getting through it. But you still want the arm of Yu Darvish in that rotation.
I mean, the good news is Darvish is throwing a side session, so maybe that's going to lead him to coming back earlier than expected. But because it wasn't the Cubs saying that he was going to be back after the All-Star game, it was reports.
Right. So we don't know if that's for sure. Again, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Well, I would rather them take their time and get him fully healthy. But we need him to pitch like the pitcher that we signed for $126 million. Because if we can get that, and we could get Tyler Chatwood out of the rotation, we could really start stringing some wins together. Because it's funny is a lot of us have grown about the Cubs, and we haven't seen the fantastic plays, the play that we want to see. We're not seeing the dominant pitching performances back to back to back like we did in 2016. We're not seeing these fantastic, consistent offensive performances, but they've got the second best record in the National League. So they're doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in this last stretch. I just hope they don't start slumping in this really kind of the time when you play a lot of division opponents. I mean, luckily they took 2 or 3 from the Pirates, even though the Pirates have been able to slip. You just like to see them going more and more as they go through these other division games. again, it's not the end of the world, but man, I would just love to see series wins.
Yeah, I would like to see them score, average over four. I'm sorry, median of over 4 runs a game. That would be nice. And see some consistency, not 14 runs one game and then 1 the next one. Is average those out.
Yeah, and it just, like I said, momentum is not really something that I always believe in, though I do feel like, I don't know if I'm overthinking this, but I don't want to give the Cardinals and the Brewers any like big glaring things of hope, Like if they beat down on the Cubs, both those teams, then that's going to give them a lot of confidence going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying is hitting is contagious. So if you get a couple guys hitting, suddenly other guys start to hit, and you can string some runs together. But it also seems that strikeouts are contagious too, especially with this team.
Yeah, for sure.
One last question I have for you.
Yes.
And then anything you want to talk about, but who are going to be the Chicago baseball all-star representatives in the all-star game?
Well, so far, I say John Lester has to be in there.
You did.
Unless things go really bad until, from now until then. Let's see. He'd be my definite.
You'd probably expect Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, I figure so. If Brian finds his power swing, then he'll be in there. Rizzo got off to a tough start, but if he can really get things going, then, maybe he has a chance. I think those, and then maybe Brandon Morrow, if he keeps going the way he is. So, those are probably my most likely guys right now. I think Albert Almora deserves more, but I don't think he's going to get it. Jason Hayward's playing really good right now, but I don't think he's going to make the All-Star game. So, I mean, those are kind of... Ben Zobrist, I don't think he's played enough. He's not an everyday player anymore. So, I guess I don't really have anyone else. Kyle Schwarber, I mean, I think he might deserve it, but I don't think he's going to get voted in. Carl Edwards Jr. with that injury kind of hurts his case a little bit. So yeah, I think definites for me would be Lester, Brandon Morrow if he keeps going. I think Chris Bryant, if he turns things around, he'll be in there. Wilson Contreras. Those would probably be my predictions for now.
And with the White Sox, it's only one, right? Abreu,
yeah, definitely Abreu.
Yeah, I can't see anybody else from the Sox making it.
Right, yeah.
I mean, even if Dylan Covey keeps putting up these numbers, there's no way they're being like, yeah, we're going to go Dylan Covey.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, even if he continues to do really well, it's probably not going to happen. But you can't always base what you do on an all-star vote because they can be very flawed.
Oh yeah, the all-star voting is so flawed. I appreciate that they give the fans the votes because that's who pays the bills. But it's hard to say that that's the best players when you get the fans to vote because it's just whoever has the popular guy on the popular team is just going to make it no matter what.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even if you don't know, even if you were in a coma for 3 years and you woke up and you just let me see who the all-star starters are, and I'll tell you what the standings are in baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of its correlation is like, so, the best guys will, there's a bunch of really good guys, all-stars on a team. Of course, they're going to be good. but it's also is if a team is playing good, you overvalue the guys that are on the team.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. It definitely happens.
But that's all I really had. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, not really. It'd just be nice if the Cubs bats could come around in this game. You'll obviously probably be listening to this after the game is over. The scary thing is if the Cubs don't start scoring, they're going to have to deal with that Milwaukee bullpen that no one can even touch right now. So,
oh yeah, it's been brutal. Like their bullpen is nasty.
And I ask myself, how long can they sustain that? Even if there's a lot of talent in that bullpen, how long can they sustain that before they start slumping?
Well, I mean, bullpens get slumpy really easily, but the thing I don't know if Milwaukee's got enough starting pitching to be a threat for the World Series.
I keep saying that, but these guys keep putting up these performances you wouldn't expect from them.
Yeah, but that's going to come to a hard crashing halt in a 7-game series.
Well, you would think, I guess.
But I guess that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the TuneIn app. Follow us on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Please share with your friends. And again, thank you for listening. And until next time, bear down.
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van. And she looks like...
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on the plains. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go Bears.